Would you have bought a quantum stock in 2023 for less than $1 if you could? Well, if you did, that stock would have risen over 2,000%. And of course, I'm guessing most everybody watching this video will say yes. It traded under $1 in September 2023. $10,000 invested then would be worth over $224,000 today. I'm showing you this because the receipt itself is telling us something critical. And there is a word I want to tell you about. That's called a woodshed signal. It's like a signal. Anyone can get up on stage and play guitar. But if you've been in the woodshed for years and no one can see you, your performance reveals something to the audience that they can't fake. That's baked into the preparation. This is how a receipt like this looks. Anyone can say quantum stocks are very exciting in April 2026 when NVIDIA is making announcements and everything is blowing up. But to make that call in September of 2023, when these companies were below $1 and no one was paying attention, that's the woodshed. Above all, be prepared. So what's changed? There were 4 quantum pure plays publicly traded 6 months ago. Now there are 7 and another 3 in the IPO pipeline. But before I get to all the names, I want to plant just this one idea. There is a mathematical rule called the 37% rule. There's really not much said there before you make the big decision. Spend the first chunk of your time just watching. Check out how the pros do it. Establish your baseline. Then, when you see something beyond all you have seen, you move. Now there is something you must know about quantum computing. There are 4 fundamentally different ways to build a quantum computer. And for the first time ever, all 4 are publicly investable. And that's important because you're not stuck with one approach. So as I go through companies, I'm going to tell you what architecture they're using. The first is D-Wave Quantum, which uses a superconducting approach called annealing. And annealing, all I'm really saying is the system solves optimization problems that are out there today. Think supply chain routing, drug discovery, scheduling, financial risk modeling. Customers are already using this technology today. Full year 2025 revenue was up 179% YOY, but it was really the early 2026 numbers that grabbed people's attention. In January and February alone, D-Wave signed more new deals than its entire 2025 annual revenue. Yeah, more than the whole last year in 2 months. Here is something that most coverage has completely missed. D-Wave received a second quantum architecture in January 2026. Now they have gate model capability on their annealing processor. 49 by 2027, 8 qubits in length, 17 by the middle of 2026. That's a working system on a 12-month build schedule. Another leader in this field is IonQ, which takes a very different approach called trapped ion. Instead of superconducting circuits, they use single atoms trapped in electromagnetic fields. The biggest pure play on quantum in terms of revenue and market cap is ion. The most precise are trapped ion systems. Revenue increased 202% year over year, and they announced a $1.8 billion acquisition of Skywater Technology, a trusted U.S. semiconductor foundry. If that deal goes through, now IonQ would have the entire manufacturing process from start to finish all on U.S. soil. And I think that makes a big difference when it comes to Pentagon contracts. And ION is now cleared to bid on U.S. defense quantum work. And then we have Rigetti Computing, which is using the superconducting gate model technology. I want you to know there is a concentration risk. 2 contracts account for 63% of Rigetti's revenue estimate in 2026. CADC, the research organization of India, has placed an order for 108 qubit systems and Nova QPU hardware. And those delivery schedules have already slipped from the first half of 2026 to the second half of 2026. I mean, look, orders for quantum hardware are slow. That's the territory. So if you're a Rigetti owner, you're betting on their superconducting roadmap and ability to close the gap with IBM and Google. And then there is Quantum Computing Inc., traded under the ticker QUBT. QUBT's 2025 revenue was just $682,000, and their 10K has a serious problem. The icing on the cake, the company is now facing securities fraud lawsuits. So with that ongoing issue, the lawsuit, and the $682,000 in revenue, this is definitely the riskiest name on the list. This one is very risky. Stay focused now that the details are starting to come out. So those are all established names. Coincidentally, we have already talked about 2 of the 4 architectures, superconducting and trapped ion. Now let's go ahead and let me show you the new entrants, because this is where the other 2 architectures start to come into play. 3 quantum pure plays have gone public in the last 2 months, and they bring 2 totally new hardware approaches to the public market. Well, then pay attention if you haven't heard of these names yet. It went public in February 2026, and it is based on the 3rd architecture, neutral atom. Systems of neutral atoms scale better. They can reach thousands of qubits without the engineering nightmares that other approaches encounter, and Infleqtion has the best institutional backing of any new quantum player I have seen. NVIDIA has selected Infleqtion for 2 different quantum programs. No press release, no meet. It's not a partnership announcement. Of all the quantum companies on the planet, NVIDIA picked this company twice, and this distinction is what sets Infleqtion apart from most quantum companies at this stage. They have income from 2 places. They have quantum computing. They do quantum sensing. The sensing site has real deployed hardware, including systems on the International Space Station for NASA, and their revenue already topped $32 million last year with 23% growth guided for this year. That's real commercial traction for a quantum company that has been public for just a couple of months. These are definitely early stages, but this combination of backing from NVIDIA and dual revenue streams this early out of the gate is really worth watching closely. Next up is Xanadu, which brings us to Architecture Photonic, the 4th and final one. And this is the name I think most people will mispronounce. Their Aurora system operates at room temperature. That's because, as photons, they don't require the extra cooling that superconducting qubits do. That's a real engineering advantage for scale. But the interesting part of Xanadu is the software, really. Xanadu has created Penny Lane, an open-source quantum programming framework used by half of all quantum developers around the world. It gets 160,000 downloads each month. In 2021 alone, usage grew by 161%. That's an adoption footprint that's not dependent on which hardware architecture wins because Penny Lane works on all of them. So Xanadu is 2 investment theses wrapped up in one stock: the photonic hardware bet and the software platform that's becoming the industry standard for quantum development. The stock has been extremely volatile since it began trading in March of 2026, and revenue is just getting underway. I mean, this is very speculative, but the software angle gives it just a little bit of a layer that most pure quantum plays just don't have. Next is Horizon Quantum, which just closed its SPAC in March and started trading on NASDAQ. They build hardware-agnostic quantum software tools, so they win regardless of what architecture takes off. They are the middleware layer. In the microcap space of quantum security, 2 names stand out. Then there's SEALSQ, which is building post-quantum encryption chips to help keep systems secure until quantum computers really can crack today's encryption. And then there is Archit working on quantum safe key distribution. Both are pre-revenue and very early, but they complete the investable universe in quantum. And then we're going to follow that up with some upcoming IPOs like Quantinuum, which is majority owned by Honeywell. Well, they just filed their S1 confidentiality in January 2026, and they are looking for an IPO valuation of around $20 billion. That would be by far the biggest quantum company to go public. And then on top of them, we have IQM from Finland going public via a SPAC at a $1.88 billion valuation expected to close in June of this year. And our third IPO is Pasqal out of France, which is looking to do a $2 billion SPAC listing in the back half of this year. So in summary, we have now seen all 4 architectures. You have superconducting, trapped ion, neutral atom, and photon. Across all of these, there could be 8 or more quantum pure plays traded publicly by the end of 2026. That has never happened in this sector and changes the way we can build a quantum portfolio fundamentally. Before I get to the allocation, there's a layer I want to make sure that you take into account. Amazon Web Services hosts 5 quantum hardware vendors on one cloud platform, and Microsoft Azure hosts 4 of them. NVIDIA's software platform is compatible with 75% of the world's quantum computers. Their venture arm-backed Quantum, Kira, and SI Quantum in deals totaling more than $1.8 billion. These companies have enough to do and don't need quantum to succeed. But again, if and when quantum wins, they are the toll takers who win and lose at the same time. They are stronger now than they were then and still get the biggest slice of the allocation because they win regardless of which architecture is going to come out on top. Are quantum stocks still good entries today? And I said, maybe. And that's what I mean by that. Remember the 37% rule, that look phase I was talking about at the beginning? Watch first, establish your baseline, and then act when something beats everything you've seen. Most people who buy quantum stocks don't have a baseline. They just saw a chart and jumped in with everyone else. They just happened to see a headline. But you are not those people anymore. The next time one of these names bounces, you'll know if it's noise or signal. And that's what you have in the lookup phase. It's not the stock you purchase. It's the framework that helps you make a better decision. Now, there is a feeling that comes up at this very point in the cycle, and I want you to be aware of that before you make any decision. So if you can feel that change within yourself right now as you are watching this video, that is the sign. Neither a buy signal nor a sell signal. It's just a pause signal, because the fear that made someone buy at the top is the same fear that prevented them from buying at the very bottom. It only pointed to something else. And one more thing you need to know before you make your decision: all these companies are burning cash and issuing shares just to stay alive. So even if the stock goes up, your piece of the pie could be getting smaller. That's the trade-off of early-stage hardware companies. So the question right now, before any quantum decision, is not, is this exciting? Because it definitely is. But the real question is the decision you are about to make calibrated or emotional? Please do subscribe to this channel, and thanks for watching.